Hi everybody, it's David. So here we are now with week 2 of our cocktail of the week. I hope that you all recovered from the Paloma. A lot of you said, oh, tequila, I don't know. Mother's Day is coming up, and so we've got a couple of really great recipes that are going to be listed in this email. But I wanted to make for you my mother's favorite cocktail. This memory takes me back to sort of like the 1960s. When cocktails were all in vogue. My mom, we would go out for dinner. I remember going to like the old ports of call. Some of you may remember that, or those that are my vintage. We would go out and a cocktail was a real beautiful thing. My mother looked like Jackie Kennedy. She had the most amazing flip and hair, and it was fantastic. And she would have she would have a frozen grasshopper, or she would have a brandy Alexander, and she would have it for dessert. And we're gonna get to both of those drinks somewhere down the line. But before dinner, she would have a Manhattan. Now, Manhattan, classic drink, but we're gonna put a little twist on it, just a little teeny bit, because that's what we do here. Before we get started on that, I wanna remind you, I'm trying to make these drinks out of things that you can find, ingredients, stuff that I know is in the local LCBOs, all that kind of stuff. I want to talk just before we start really quickly about ingredients when we're talking about Manhattan. There's a couple of things that are essential. I apologize because we're going to go bourbon rye. I'm not too sure. I apologize to all of you who are rye drinkers because we don't drink a lot of rye in this house, and you can recognize by the label on this bottle of Canadian Club that this has been sitting in my liquor cabinet for at least a good 10 years. So I apologize to any of you who are CC drinkers. The other thing I want to talk about is Vermouth. Vermouth is a fortified wine. You can buy it here, of course, in town. Always buy the half bottles. This is a fortified wine. It only has 15% alcohol. It's not like this rye that you can try and keep in your cupboard for 10 years. After a couple of months, this will start to go off the way a wine will. When you open it, keep it in the fridge. The sweet vermouth that we're going to use for this will last longer than the dry vermouth, but always get a half bottle. It's fresher. I've opened this already. We're probably going to use this a couple of times in the next couple of weeks. Keep it in the fridge. It's a great thing. The other thing I want to talk about is Angostura bitters. If you've got a bottle that, again, that's been sitting in your cabinet or above your stove or whatever for the last couple of years, throw it out, start fresh. All the way from Trinidad and Tobago, it is an awesome, awesome thing. The other thing, we're talking red dye number 40, we're talking all of that kind of stuff. We're talking about maraschino cherries and what they are. If you can, make your own sour cherries in brandy, all that kind of stuff, great. But I'm talking about the 1960s. This was what was used. It was de rigueur, okay? That's what it was. So, it was my mom's favorite drink. I have this thing about cocktails, about remembering them in my house. My dad would come home almost every day after work. He'd be home by 5 o'clock. He would pour himself a scotch and soda. That's what he did. He was a scotch and soda guy. Chivas, when he could get it, and soda. And my mom loved Manhattan. When we would go to that restaurant before dinner, she would order a Manhattan. My dad took a real sort of pride in sort of making them eventually when he thought that'd be kind of a cool thing. So let's look at that. So what we're going to do is we've got a glass that's chilled, and we're going to put some ice in it. And we're going to add a little bit more ice. And then so my dad, he would, he'd be talking away, and he would take my mom liked it a little sweet, so he would put an ounce of sweet vermouth into the cocktail shaker, boom, just like that. He would add 2 drops, no more, no less, of Angostura, 1, 2, that would go into that as well. And then he would reach for the rye. He'd be having a scotch and soda, he would reach for the rye, and he would pour a generous little tot of the rye. He would reach for it, he would grab it, and he would pour 2 ounces of rye into that drink. Boom. There's 2 ounces, maybe a little bit more, because that's the way my mom always liked it. And he had a cocktail shaker, and he would shake it up. And usually, he would maybe sing a wee song. My dad loved to talk. Tree, acorn, not too far. But when he was making drink, he would love to sing. A wee dog and Doris, just a wee dog and dog, just a wee dog and Doris, before you gang me war. There's a wee wifey waiting in a wee button bin. If you can say it's a brabrich moonlich nicht, then you're all right. You can. So that's about how long it would maybe take him to stir up that cocktail. So then what he would do is he would take it, he would strain it, he would pour it into that glass. Boom, there it was. It was a thing of beauty. And of course, he would add 2 maraschino cherries. Why 2? Because that's the way my mom liked it. She liked it with that. He handed it to her and he said, "Oh, May, give that a wee try. It's just the way you like it, lassie." She picked it up, she put it to her lips and she tasted it and she said, "Oh, Jack, that's very strong, but it's also very different." Because, of course, he hadn't reached for the rye. He had been mixing the scotch and he reached for the scotch. God bless your heart, Walter Learning, for leaving this bottle of Ballantines at my bar, because I don't drink a lot of scotch. That's what he had done. So rather than making either the rye or bourbon Manhattan, he had in fact made the classic cocktail, a Rob Roy. Unbeknownst to him, that's what it was. And it couldn't be more perfect from 2 young kids who were from Glasgow than to have a beautiful cocktail made by accident named after the, well, if you're Scottish, he was a folk hero. If you're English, he was an outlaw. But he was Rob Roy, and that's what the cocktail is. And so, Mom, I love you. I miss you every day of my life. I wish you were here. One day, we will share a Rob Roy together, just the way you always used to like it when Dad made it. This is, I think, is the perfect cocktail for this weekend for Mother's Day. It's going to go fantastically. Diane's recipe for her amazing drumstick cake is attached. And of course, Mark Crawford has done the most amazing video for his first time ever glazed donuts. And I think either one of them would be fantastic. Served with my mom's Rob Roy. Stick a maraschino on cherry on top of the donut. Stick it on top of the cake and enjoy. Mom, here's to you. Love you. Happy Mother's Day, everybody.